Life doesn't come with warnings. These 9 Stoic strategies will keep you from falling. You ever notice how some people wake up to an alarm, and others just wake up anxious? Like, before you even open your eyes, there's already that creeping feeling, like something's off. You don't know exactly what it is, but it's there. That quiet hum of tension, as if your brain is already bracing for the day. And maybe you tell yourself, okay, today I'll stay ahead, stick to the plan, keep calm. But life has its own ideas. Jobs disappear. The market crashes over one headline. A friend you trusted just ghosts you out of nowhere. You think you've finally found solid ground, and boom, another curveball. It's exhausting, right? But here's where it gets wild. The Stoics, the ancient philosophers who lived through wars, exile, and plagues, they didn't see this chaos as some unfortunate glitch in the system. They saw it as the system. To them, instability wasn't the problem. It was the very condition under which strength is forged. They believed you don't need a calm life to feel calm. You don't need a stable world to feel steady. What you need are the right tools, the right mindset. And that's what Stoicism offers, and has offered, for over 2,000 years. It's not about pretending things are fine. It's about becoming someone who's ready for anything. So in this video, we're going to dive into 9 Stoic ideas, not just for surviving in this chaotic world, but for actually thriving in it. If life's been throwing you off balance lately, you're not broken. You're being built. And if this resonates with you, if it stirs something real, something grounded in truth and inner growth, consider subscribing. Not just to this channel, but to the journey. Because this mindset, it's not hype. It's a quiet revolution. Let's get into it. Stop chasing stability. It's a myth. Most of us spend our lives trying to outrun discomfort. We chase stability like it's some promised land, believing that if we just work hard enough, plan well enough, or control everything around us, we'll eventually reach that perfect day where nothing goes wrong. But life doesn't work like that. It moves. It shifts. It surprises you. And just when you think you've got it figured out, something changes. But that's not a design flaw. That's life doing what it's always done. The Stoics didn't just accept this. They leaned into it. They saw change not as the enemy, but as the teacher. There's this idea they lived by called amor fati. It means love of fate. Not just tolerate it, not just endure it, but love it. But because the things you don't choose often shape you the most. Take the lodgepole pine. It only releases its seeds after a wildfire. That's how it reproduces. Without fire, it doesn't grow. You're the same. There are parts of you, your courage, your grit, your clarity, that only come out when life tests you. Fire doesn't just burn. It reveals. It refines. You lose a job? Maybe that creates space to finally pursue what you really want. Maybe that rejection forces you to stop settling. You get ghosted, dumped, or betrayed. Maybe that person wasn't meant to walk the next mile with you. Maybe life is editing your path with more precision than you ever could. It's not punishment. It's alignment. You don't control what happens. You control what you make of it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, warrior, philosopher, once wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Think about that. Everything that hits you, the loss, the setback, the delay, it's fuel. Fuel for your evolution. But only if you let it be. You're not defined by the event. You're defined by your response to it. The Stoics practiced this mindset every day. They weren't waiting for life to get easier. They were training for when it got hard. They journal through storms. Visualize loss before it came, not to be morbid, but to prepare their hearts. Because here's the trap. The more you expect life to go smoothly, the more fragile you become. Aristotle didn't say the good life was pleasure or success. He said it was excellence of character, gained through struggle. built through action, over time. So if you're asking, why me? Maybe flip that. Try asking, what is this building in me? Is it patience? Humility? Power you didn't know you had? Plato said, you can learn more about someone in an hour of struggle than a year of comfort. So here you are, struggling? But this is your arena. This is where your future self is being shaped. What stands in the way becomes the way. Here's something powerful the Stoics taught. The obstacle isn't in your way. It is the way. That rejection, that failure, that detour, it's not stopping you, it's steering you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That wasn't a poetic line he jotted down while sipping tea on a hillside. He wrote it while ruling a crumbling empire. During war. During plague. During betrayal. He didn't write theory, he wrote survival. And that's what Stoicism gives us. Not a fantasy. A survival manual. Because disruption isn't your enemy. Resistance is. And the more you resist, the more it drags you. But if you meet the storm with courage and awareness, it becomes your catalyst. Sometimes life just doesn't make sense. You're standing there, trying to figure out how everything that once felt solid is now spinning. Nothing works the way it used to. Plans crumble. People vanish. Routines dissolve. And your brain goes, why now? Why this? It's scary. It's frustrating. And it's deeply disorienting. But here's the strange part. Those moments? They're often exactly where your story changes. Not in spite of the chaos. Because of it. Transformation doesn't come when life is smooth. It comes when the ground beneath you shifts, when you're forced to either break down or build something new. Every great story, every myth, every hero's journey has that moment. The breakdown, the crisis point, the part where you think, this is it, I'm done. But it's in that exact fall where the real rise begins. Think back to your own life. The moments that shaped you, that really built you, they didn't come when things were easy. They came when things fell apart. When the job ended, the plan failed, the person left, the door slammed. The Stoics had a phrase for this. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's not just a nice quote for Instagram. It's a hard-earned truth. The obstacle isn't blocking your path, it is your path. That closed door? That's not the end. That's the turn. That's where you grow. When life breaks structure, builds something better. The most common instinct when things fall apart is to panic. We scramble to fix, to force, to restore what was. But what if that's not your job? What if your role isn't to patch up the old, but to build something new? Marcus Aurelius wasn't writing philosophy in some quiet monastery. He was leading during plague and war, and still he found time to reflect, to journal, to ground himself. He wasn't avoiding the fire, he was learning how to stand in it. Carl Jung once said, in all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. That's the mindset shift. Instead of spiraling when things collapse, you pause. What's the pattern here? What's the deeper lesson? What is this moment pulling out of me? Disruption forces growth, if you let it. The more you resist change, the more it controls you. But when you meet it with curiosity, something incredible happens. It becomes a teacher. Aristotle believed that excellence is built not in comfort, but in habit. In doing the hard thing over and over. So when the structure disappears, when nothing is going according to plan, that's not failure. That's the invitation. To evolve. To get creative. To take responsibility, not for what happened, but for what happens next. And here's the deep part. Even ancient philosophers like Socrates warned against clinging to comfort. He believed the unexamined life is not worth living. And disruption? It forces examination. It asks, what really matters? What am I holding on to, and why? What have I confused as safety that's really just routine or fear? Instead of reacting, strategize. So here's the shift. When life gets chaotic, most people just react. But a Stoic doesn't just react. A Stoic reflects. They step back and strategize. They ask, how can I use this? Because in every mess, there's a seed of strength. But only if you pause long enough to notice it. That one question, what is this trying to teach me? Changes everything. Takes the power back. That's what Stoicism does. It doesn't erase the pain. It just gives you a new lens to see it through. You're not alone in this. You're part of a lineage. Let's get real. There are days where the weight you're carrying feels like yours alone. You're exhausted, trying to hold everything together, putting on a brave face, smiling when you want to scream. It's isolating. But here's the thing you might not have heard enough. You're not alone. Not just in the other people feel this too kind of way, but in a deeper, historical way. What you're going through, the pressure, the uncertainty, the feeling like life won't stop shifting, it's part of the human experience. The Stoics didn't have it easier. In fact, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, ruled during a deadly plague that wiped out millions. He buried his own children, fought constant wars, faced betrayal from people close to him. He governed an empire falling apart from the inside. And still, in the middle of all that, he wrote meditations. Not for fame, not for anyone else, but for himself. To stay calm, to stay grounded. That's not weakness. That's strength, the rare kind. Because the strong person isn't the one who never struggles. It's the one who learns how to respond. Stoicism isn't a theory, it's a lifeline. Carl Jung said, loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from not being able to express what feels important. That hits deep. And that's what Stoicism gives us. A language for struggle. A framework. A mirror. A way to put our experiences into words and our pain into purpose. When you read Seneca or Epictetus or Marcus, you start to realize, this isn't just you. You're not defective. You're not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You're walking a path millions have walked before. And they made it through. You're not breaking, you're becoming. Socrates once said, he who is not content with what he has will not be content with what he wants. In other words, peace doesn't come from getting everything. It comes from changing your relationship with what already is. Stoicism doesn't promise you comfort. It promises you clarity. It doesn't say you won't suffer. It says when suffering comes, and it will, here's how you meet it with strength. You've already survived more than you give yourself credit for. Every scar you carry is proof of survival. Every time you thought you were at the edge, but didn't fall off, you grew. So when life hits hard again, and it will, don't say, why me? Say, I'm built for this. Because you are. You come from a long line of survivors. And you're not done yet. There's a strange kind of comfort we chase, the comfort of sameness. We want the job to stay stable, the relationship to stay easy, our routines to stay familiar. But life doesn't sign contracts with us. It doesn't guarantee predictability. And the tighter we grip, the more we suffer when things shift, because eventually they always do. It's like trying to hold on to water. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. The Stoics saw this clearly. They didn't see change as a threat. They saw it as a rhythm, part of the pattern of nature itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, observe constantly that all things take place by change. And he didn't write that from some mountain retreat. He wrote it while dealing with war, plague, betrayal, in the middle of it all. That tells you something. This wasn't poetry. This was his manual for survival. Carl Jung said something powerful too. What you resist persists. Meaning, it's not the change that crushes you. It's the fight against it. Adaptability, then, isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's respect for yourself and for life. When you allow things to evolve, when you give yourself permission to evolve with them, that's where true strength lives. The quiet power of adaptation. Think of Queen Elizabeth II. She reigned for 70 years. From handwritten letters to digital diplomacy, from empires to service, she adapted through everything. She didn't cling to the past. She adjusted to the present, over and over again. And that's what made her relevant, respected, steady. Aristotle believed that virtue lives in the balance, not in extremes. If you're too rigid, you become brittle. If you're too loose, you drift. But real power? It's in flexibility, not the kind born from fear, but from values. That kind of strength lets you stay grounded while still moving through life. Sometimes you're holding on to a cage. Let me ask you something. Are you holding on to stability? Or are you holding on to a story that's no longer true? Socrates would probably challenge you with that very question. Because sometimes what we call security is just a familiar cage. And real life, big, expansive, honest life, begins the moment you stop clinging. So ask yourself, where am I gripping too tightly? What am I afraid will happen if I let go just a little? Because maybe, just maybe, your next level won't come from more control, but from more trust. Let it flow. Don't force it. That's the Stoic way. Life doesn't follow your schedule, and that's okay. Just when you think things are finally steady, a deal falls through. Someone walks away. Your health dips. Your plans unravel. It's frustrating. It feels unfair. But what if fair was never the point? What if the most powerful thing you could do wasn't to wish it hadn't happened, but to decide what it means now that it has? The Stoics weren't interested in fantasy. They were interested in reality, raw, uncomfortable, unpredictable. Dictatus said, "It's not things that upset us. It's our judgments about things." You don't control the storm, but you do control how you respond to the rain. That's where your power lives. Carl Jung said it another way, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That hits deep, doesn't it? Because life will happen, whether you're ready or not. But who you become in response, that part is yours. Even small things can teach you. Not every storm is dramatic. Sometimes it's a rude message, a missed call, a weird silence, a small shift in your plan that rattles you in ways you didn't expect. And when it does, you've got a decision to make. You can spiral into blame, or you can pause and ask a better question. What's the lesson here? What's the opportunity inside this mess? Plato once said, "Reality is created by the mind." We can change our reality by changing our mind. That's not self-help fluff. That's real. That's Stoicism. Your interpretation, not the event, shapes your world. A failed relationship could be redirection. A lost job could be the doorway to freedom. Excellence isn't a moment, it's a habit. Even Aristotle, thousands of years ago, knew this. He taught that excellence isn't some one-time achievement. It's a habit, a way of living, formed moment by moment, especially during hard times. So instead of breaking down, you learn. Instead of shutting down, you open up. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Not to avoid the blow, but to absorb it, to learn from it, to transform it. Sometimes, the most Stoic thing you can do is ask questions. Socrates didn't run from challenge. Even when facing death, he didn't panic. He asked questions. He examined the meaning. He stayed curious. And that's the blueprint. Not to try and control life, but to engage with it. Intentionally. Courageously. So next time things don't go your way, and let's be honest, that could be today, Don't rush to label it bad. Take a breath. Step back. And ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? What part of me is being called to grow? Because inside every shakeup is a seed of strength. And the story you choose to tell yourself about what's happening, that's the real power. That's what changes everything. You ever feel like your mind just won't stop? You're looping, overthinking, mentally rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You're running worst-case scenarios on autopilot. And the noise, it just keeps getting louder. Here's what most people never try. Writing. Not typing. Not tweeting. Actually writing. Putting pen to paper and dragging your thoughts out into the real world. It sounds simple, but it's powerful. Because when your mind is racing, writing slows it down. It's like turning on a flashlight in a dark room. Suddenly, the shadows shrink. The chaos softens. And what felt overwhelming starts to make sense. The Stoics knew this long before therapists or self-help books. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote a journal that would later be called Meditations. But he didn't write it for anyone else. He wrote it to stay grounded. To stay sane in the middle of plague, war, betrayal. His journal wasn't a performance. It was a practice. Turn the unconscious into the conscious. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's what journaling does. It takes the vague, the stress, the fear, the thoughts you haven't dared to name, and gives it shape. You think you're just scribbling in a notebook, but what you're really doing is untangling your mind. Instead of your thoughts controlling you, you start to control them. And let's be honest, most of us don't actually think. We overthink. We worry. We replay and rehearse and spiral. Socrates believed the unexamined life wasn't worth living. That doesn't mean you obsess over everything, but it does mean you pause. You ask. You check in with your inner world. Because not every thought you have is true. Self-knowledge is a daily practice. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. But self-knowledge doesn't just show up. Slowly, with reflection. And you don't need a fancy journal or perfect handwriting to do it. You just need honesty. 5 quiet minutes. A little curiosity. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What's pulling at my energy? What fear have I been ignoring? When you write it down, you name it. When you name it, you can work with it. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. So tonight, instead of scrolling, sit with yourself for a minute. Write down the 3 biggest things on your mind. Then ask, are these facts or are they fears? You might be surprised how much lighter you feel, not because the problems vanish, but because you see them clearly. Journaling isn't just expression. It's clarity. And clarity? That's freedom. Zoom out. Find perspective. Have you ever noticed how the smallest things feel massive when you're too close? A rude message, a missed deadline, a weird silence in a conversation. When you're in it, it consumes you. But zoom out just a little, and everything shifts. Perspective isn't a luxury. It's a Stoic tool. Marcus Aurelius practiced it daily. He would remind himself to take the view of the whole. Not just his little world, but all of nature, all of time. He'd write things like, see things as they are, stripping away the story. Because most of the time, we're not reacting to reality. We're reacting to a thought about it. Carl Jung said, the pendulum of the mind swings between sense and nonsense, not right and wrong. What feels overwhelming now might feel irrelevant tomorrow. When you zoom out, problems shrink. Emotions pass. You reconnect with something steadier. Plato encouraged us to rise above the cave, above the illusions, above the shadows, to see clearly. And when you do that, you don't just feel calm. You become calm. You remember, this too will pass. You're not the problem, you're the observer. So the next time your mind is spinning, your chest is tight, and life feels like it's closing in, step outside. Literally, if you can, look up at the sky. Breathe. Remind yourself, you are not the problem. You are the awareness witnessing it. You are the one who watches. You are bigger than this moment, stronger than the feeling. And like every other storm you've weathered, this one will pass too. Because peace doesn't come from fixing everything. Peace comes from zooming out and seeing clearly. Control what you can, release what you can't. Let's end here with one of the most powerful but simple teachings of Stoicism. Control what you can. Let go of what you can't. Sounds obvious, right? But in a world that pulls your attention outward, to the news, to other people's opinions, to 1,000 things you don't control, this practice becomes a superpower. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us. Some things are not." That one sentence? That's Stoicism in a nutshell. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions, those are yours. The outcome? Not always. The timing? Rarely. But how you carry yourself in the storm, that's where your freedom lives. Carl Jung put it this way: freedom stretches only as far as the limits of our awareness. So the more aware you become, the more power you reclaim. Because most people, they go through life reacting. They get triggered, they blame, they spiral. But the Stoics train themselves to pause, to ask, is this in my control? If the answer's no, release it. If it's yes, it. Socrates believed that self-mastery was the root of all good. Let him who would move the world first move himself. And that's your work. Not to fix the world, but to move yourself, to control your breath, your focus, your attention. Because that's where real strength lives. You are still you, even in the storm. So when life gets loud, when people misunderstand you, when the plan falls apart, stop, breathe, and whisper to yourself, I am still me. I don't fold. I don't flinch. I shine. You don't have to control the chaos. You just have to stay steady within it. That's Stoicism. That's power. That's your light. And the world needs more of it.